Australian living standards are dropping. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, I'm Florian Heise and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I have my stein of coffee here. I thought today we'd talk about an article from The Guardian with regards to how we survived the GFC, but how we've squandered all of that survival and that advantage, and our living standards really haven't improved. One would ask that we've been left behind by the rest of the world. Now, before we jump into it, I want you to think, has your quality of life or have the standards of living gotten better or gotten worse over, say, the last 20 years? You know, we've got faster internet, we've got access to more things. Well, do we have faster internet now that I think about the NBN? What about access to healthcare? What about public transport? What about the quality of the buildings that people are inhabiting? How many videos have I done on building disasters and issues, and people are ringing me up and talking to me about other issues that aren't even in the media yet? So let me know in the comments, guys, before we jump into this. So this was an article by Greg Jericho, and I thought it'd be good to read. So Australia managed to survive the global recession, but all that good work has been wasted. Our living standards withstood the fallout from the GFC, but in the decade since, we've squandered our comparative advantage. Yeah, I would think so. It feels like it. It certainly feels like it. It certainly does. Ahead of the GDP figures to be released next week, the news on the economy continues to be weak. This is not good news, given the OECD release of a report into household disposable income, which confirms that Australian living standards have flatlined for over 5 years at a time, with other nations have seen their household incomes improve strongly. So while other nations are going up, Australia is stagnated. And that would make a lot of sense. That would align with everything we're seeing with regards to wage growth, except for the public sector. Yes, there's wage growth there, and it tends to outstrip the private sector because they're in their own little bubble. They really are. It shows that all good work done during the GFC has been completely wasted. Well, was it good work in the GFC? Was it good work? Spending money, building all these, the education revolution. What return on investment did we get on the expenditure for the education revolution? Have you looked into it before? I remember sitting there on practice committee meetings where people were quite concerned, and by practice I mean the Institute of Architects, where senior members of the profession were quite concerned at just the copy-paste mentality with a lot of these projects. Public schools would get a hall or assembly hall, and they go, we don't need one. You're getting one. Here's the design. It's going there. Boom. Where the private sector, where a lot of the Catholic education, they spent a lot longer, and they were quite more methodical in how they used the money, and they got better value for money. Not just these copy-paste things. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Now, okay, we've got all these schools which have these extra facilities, but what happened yesterday with our NATPlan results? And I'll do a video on it today, but our education results have gone down. They've gone down. So, was that money worth it? Because, we still have to pay that back. That's a loan on future generations. Still has to be paid back. What's your ROI on that? Maybe the government needs to do ROI checks on some of their things. So when it can sound good in the moment, when Kevin Rudd is coming back out of obscurity to say, they need to listen to me, we haven't really dealt with the full impact of what he did. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Because honestly, I would agree that our living standards has flatlined. More people. How many people do you know personally that are working an Uber job or are underemployed, or are in small business and are struggling to make ends meet? Rachel reminded me, we had a situation where money was so tight for us because we were waiting on money coming in. We'd done all this work, sign off, and the clients wouldn't pay, or they'd pay late, often. And we had one instance where we had to pay the staff, we had to pay our mortgage, everything else, so we just had to put off the hot water for a couple of months, getting it repaired. That's how you know you got a good wife, to all the MGTOW guys there who should put up with that. I mean, it's during summer, so it's not too hard in Queensland. It's not like you use it that much. But the point is that small business can really experience a lot harder than a lot of people realize. So let's have a look. Let's have a look here. So March quarter GDP figures were pretty dire. The worst annual growth for a decade. The first time since 1983 that GDP per capita had fallen in 3 consecutive quarters. Yep, I've talked about that before. We're on a per capita recession. And yesterday we looked at the construction industry, which has been for 11 consecutive quarters. The indice that's measuring the amount of work has been going down. So I need to have a coffee here. One reason was the slowdown in construction work, which unfortunately shows no signs of abating. Yes, it does. It does not. The latest construction work figures released on Wednesday by the Bureau of Statistics show that the volume of both private and public construction has now fallen for 4 straight quarters. Construction work done quarterly. I mean, here you go. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, anyone in the game realizes that people are leaving comments yesterday reaffirming what I've been saying, or saying, work has been slower. I've had to do contract work, and I've only gotten so many months. It's a tough gig, guys. It's a tough gig, and don't think architects have it any easier. If anything, I'd say we're the canary in the coal mine, because we've been feeling it for a while in our little business. There's a reason why I scaled back. I had to cut all the staff, got out of the premises, and working from here. You'll see I'll turn around later today, and I've got some work on that I do here. So it's a lot easier when one of the advantages our profession has, as opposed to my trading mates, even though we can bond over tough times, is I don't need to be buying material for jobs. Like, my friend will get a job where he'll have to fabricate something, and he'll have to buy all the material for that, and he'll have to cash flow it too. And even it sucks, because what if you don't get paid, or what if the builders go under? This is why the subbies have it so hard, because they've also got that they need to pile on. And I don't envy them. I really don't. So, private sector construction work is down 8% on where it was a year ago, and public sector work is down 14%. That's concerning too, because that's the public sector sometimes will be used to stimulate the economy, stimulate the construction sector. So while we still have to wait for the trade figures and other data, such as capital expenditure, to get a fuller picture of where the GDP figures will show, the signs are not great that the second quarter of this year saw much improvement. And that is a problem, because as I've been noting for some time, real household disposable income per capita has been either flat or falling for around 7 years now. And that real household disposable income per person, that's the measure of pretty much your quality of life in some regards. It means how much you can spend on better quality food. It means what you can spend on education, what you can spend on entertainment. Speaking of entertainment, I heard there is a free streaming platform coming out. Let me know if you had a look. I don't know what the name is. I'm not mentioning this because I'm sponsored, but I saw it was free, and well, there you go. Watching for some advertisements might be a go. But then again, you should just be watching YouTube for all your entertainment needs, which I tend to do, to be quite honest. While the ABS measures real net national disposable income per capita, it does not actually provide a measure for household disposable incomes. There you go. This has meant the national income figure, which is commonly suggested as being a good measure of economic health or even living standards, gets prominence, while the household income figure does not. That's the thing. Household, everything needs to be measured on household, I'd say. Because normally when people are buying houses, they're doing it a household. When they're making any purchasing decisions, it's done as a household. The problem with this is that good profit figures can obscure the fact that households are not doing any better. But with a bit of work with the data, you can calculate a figure for household disposable incomes, which has shown that for a long time now, the real growth in national income is to companies, not to households. And how many of those companies are offshoring the money? We saw that again yesterday in another piece. And so it was with interest that I read the release on Tuesday by the OECD, which was headlined, OECD Household Income Group Continue to Outpace GDP Growth in First Quarter of 2019. The report noted that real household income per capita, which provides a better picture of changes in households' economic well-being than real GDP growth per capita, had accelerated to 0.6% 0.1% in the OECD area in the first quarter of 2019, compared with 0.3 in the fourth quarter of 2018. And it's good news. And here we go. And then you look at Australia's figures. Then you look at us, the Aussies. The OECD estimates our real household disposable income fell 0.1% in the first quarter of this year and is down 0.8% on where it was last year. And just think with our cost of, I'll bring up my favorite website, guys, that I should get sponsorship from, looking at our economy and looking at just what Australia imports. Okay, and if the Australian dollar continues to decline, we'll see more of our imports go up in costs. Petroleum, cars, broadcasting equipment, computers, all of these things will start going up in cost relative to our dollar, which means our disposable income will fall. And think how much taxes are put on petrol. How much taxes are put on petrol? Rather than, handing out money, rather than, I don't know, whatever scheme the government has to stimulate the economy, what if they reduced taxes on petrol? And I know it's a state level, and I know there's all these other layers of BS. What if they reduced it? It would make Uber driving more affordable. It would make taxi driving more affordable. It would make every delivery done more affordable. Every part of the economy that depends on the transportation of goods and services by a vehicle more affordable. I think that would have a greater flow-through effect. And every person in the country would notice it at the Bowser. If all of a sudden your petrol was under $1. Because it adds up, guys. These small little things add up. You'd be shocked. But no, we can't do that. The government's... Here's an idea. Here's one I'm stealing from the Libertarian Party in Australia, where legislation needs to have a half-life. I think taxation needs to have a half-life. After so many years, the tax expires and it has a period before you can re-implement that tax. That would be interesting. Then the government has to be more adept. Then the public service has to be more adept. Then they can't just get complacent. Let me know what you think about that idea. I like that one. Half-life for taxation. And then you can't reintroduce it for a certain period. Maybe I'm dreaming. But that one's going in the pool room. So, the data highlights just how quickly we've fallen back to the field. Whereas from 2007 to the end of 2013, the real disposable income of Australian households outgrew the OECD average in 18 out of 21 quarters, i.e. 2/3 of the time. Since then, in just 5 out of 22 quarters, we've done so. Since the start of 2014, the annual growth of Australian real household disposable income has always been lower than the OECD average. Go on, Aussies, we're below average. Yes. There you go. There you go. Well, real household disposable income per capita growth. And this was 2009 to 2014. You can see we were growing there. Look at Chile. Look at Chile shooting up. Yeah. So, yep, we were doing good. And then we didn't. We weren't doing good after it. So, what I'll do, hang on, we'll jump to the article, here, the live one, which I can't draw on, but you can see 2009 to 2014 Australia, 2014 to 2009. We're at the bottom. We're at the bottom. Past year, Australia, Finland, Sweden. Wow. Wonder why Finland and Sweden have gone down. Maybe I should get in touch with Sanity in Sweden to find out. I wonder Austria, but then again, that wouldn't align up with some of the other European countries. Austria, Canada, Denmark, Italy, Portugal, Germany, Spain. We are underperforming Spain and Portugal. And Spain has a huge unemployment issue with the youth. Let's look at the past decade. There you go. Still up. Disposable income is up per capita. But overall, not looking too good in the last 5 years. Not at all. So, the faltering of our living standards. Well, it does feel like it's flattening. It does feel like it's flattening. The faltering of our living standards compared with the rest of the OECD is made clear when we look at the growth since 2007. You can see we soared through the GFC compared with everyone else, and yet we have utterly failed to take advantage. And now over the past 12 years, the OECD has on average seen household incomes grow by more than ours. Well, how did we get through the GFC? You know, we had foreign investment coming in. The what did Rudd do? That's education revolution and what? Money handouts. Those were his magic tickets. The bats, people died. Okay, there's a slight saving and probably energy in the households over that period, but that's completely been offset by the increased cost of electricity. Okay, and I would firmly argue that the tremendous capex expenditure in wind generation is partly to blame with that. Because if you had put that capital expenditure into upgrading new coal, clean fire plants, it would have been more efficient. I'll bet a carton on that. Anyone who says otherwise, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. So, what was the other one? That was the bats. The education revolution. I mean, whoop-de-doo. You're giving structures to schools that they didn't want them or didn't need them. It was inefficient. The cost blowouts were insane. They were insane. You've got no idea, guys. No idea. So that was really inefficient use to stimulate the economy, and of course it overheated the sector. But what education advantages are they giving us? You know? And NAP plan results are down. We're getting dumber. So that's failed. Stimulated the economy, it overheated the sector, but the education payoff isn't there. Then the money that they gave everyone. Was it $500, I think? I know Rachel spent that money to invest in a sewing machine, and she's made a lot of clothing for us over the years, and a shirt for me that I wore in a previous episode. Thumbs up if you saw that shirt. So yeah, I'd say that was a benefit, at least to us. But to the overall economy, it was an imported sewing machine, of course. So, you know, I don't know. I want to look more into what Rudd did, but I don't know if it was all the magic that he pretends it was. You know. So real household disposable income per capita index. So you can see Australia and the OECD total. So we're heading down. We did better, but we've just sat there. We just sat there. What an utter waste. All of the good work avoiding recession wasted through blowing the recovery. And until wage growth improves, we're unlikely to see any reversing of the situation. But what the data also highlights is that Australia has a uniquely bad issue with underemployment, the very thing that is a main driver of our weak wages growth. Yes, that is a huge issue. While the OECD uses a broad measure of underemployment than does the ABS, including marginally attached workers, those outside the labour force, but who'd be willing to work if something became available, the rise and fall of the two measures are largely comparable. I'm not a big fan of the ABS's methodology of measuring this. I prefer the Roy Morgan one, to be honest. And what we see here is that while our level of underemployment or unemployment is slightly below the OECD average, our level of underemployment is the highest among advanced economies. Well, we'll jump back here to the live chart and we will have a look. So here's our unemployment at 5%. I think it was 5.2 the last time I checked. Underemployment. There you go. 14.8%. We're above Italy. 14.8%. That's the real concern right there, that number. That number. Let's look at underutilization. There we go. We're nearly 20%. Spain's doing worse than us. Spain and Italy, we know they're doing bad. Turkey, just look at the interest rates in Turkey, guys. You would be shocked. They're like 20% the last time I checked. So yeah, is this filling you with confidence? Well, silver went up, everyone, so that was some good news yesterday. Silver went up, so there you go. There's some good news. Most importantly, for our flat household income growth over the past 6 years, while we've often had higher levels of underemployment compared with other OECD nations, there has been a significant widening of the gap since 2013. So you can have a look here, 2013, well, there you go. There's the gap. A common suggestion when looking at our economy is that we are facing similar problems to those overseas. And while there is a lot of convergence, it is clear that Australian households have had a uniquely poor past 5 to 6 years. The excellent work through the GFC has been completely undermined, and we now look back on a decade where, despite not having experienced anywhere near the pain of the Great Recession that occurred in the Northern Hemisphere, we cannot claim to be any better off compared with others because of it. I would say we're in a worse position because our housing costs haven't dropped as significantly as some nations in the Northern Hemisphere. I would say we're worse. I would say we delayed it, and it's going to be worse because of it. I would say the brilliant schemes to offset it didn't have the effect or the impact that people anticipated, which doesn't surprise me at all looking at our political class. And yeah, well, from my own personal experience, it feels quite accurate. And from people I've talked to, it feels quite accurate. Guys, let me know what you think. Do you think your, living standards, have they improved? Has your disposable income improved? If I've got pensioners sending me messages or leaving comments going, yeah, I have to spend more every fortnight on my power bill than my food bill. What does that tell you guys? Come on. It's not that hard to understand. Is it just me? I think it's just we've got a group of people in this country that are isolated from just the middle class that's disappearing. That's what I think it is. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. Like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what you think. I'll see you later.